So, you wanna play?
Okay, well, I've decided to just go ahead and make a whole new makeup for this interview. As you can see here, I'm going to just start with a positive of my face, and I'm going to do a Draconian mask that I've already got the sketch for, and a roughed out 3D image in ZBrush. Okay, after spending about 30 to 40 minutes doing the sketch, I went ahead and did a ZBrush sculpture and paint job. Just really rough and quick. Spent another maybe 40 minutes to an hour on this. But I think it's so useful to really get an idea of how I need to lay the sculpture out. And another helpful thing is by setting it to transparent, you can see kind of where the sculpture lies, you know, over the face, what it lines up with. So you can get your it makes the workflow so much faster, being able to just look over and seeing, you know, where things should line up. Okay, I've been sculpting for about 20 minutes, just kind of roughed out the general shape. Hey, hello again. I'm at about an hour and a half of sculpting, and I think I've got all the main shapes and details put in. I'm probably just going to do some cleanup and then add some skin textures. Okay, so that was about 2 hours on the sculpture. Now I've got the Draconian mask coated with mold release and topped up, and I'm ready to pull a mold. I did such a good wax and Vaseline release on my face. The whole mold just popped right out, but now it's just a matter of digging the clay out of here. Okay, I've got my mold all cleaned out. I'm gonna go ahead and do a slip cast with this rubber latex. Okay, as you can see, I finished slip casting a couple layers of rubber into this mold, but as I don't have any kind of expanding foam to pour this in, I'm going to actually use a type of air dry clay called hardy clay to build an understructure that will go down the muzzle and connect to the front of my face so that the mask won't just flop around. As you can see, I just completed an understructure coat of hardy clay. I still might build out some areas, but I don't want to add too much because I still need to demold this after it dries. Okay, well, as you can see, I've demolded the slip cast rubber mask, and unfortunately the hardy clay isn't setting up fast enough and it's not sticking to the rubber as well as I thought, but I'm getting it to stay up rigid onto the face because I fabricated these two plastic pieces out of ABS plastic, and these will actually be strapped to my face. One right here across the chin, and strap this to my forehead, and this will play as a rigid structure to hold the rubber mask up. You know, unfortunately, if you look in here, my hardy clay kind of cracked and fell apart, and it's still not hardened. Kind of feels like I'm in a challenge already. I'm just kind of having to come up with plan B. Okay, I've got my fabricated ABS pieces in place, glued in place. You can see it's keeping the mask nice and rigid now. I heated up the ABS and pressed it onto my positive so that the chin and the nose piece actually butts up perfectly. And I needed those rigid pieces so that I could attach these straps to. So when I pull this tight up against my face, it will support the weight of the mask. I also coated the hardy clay, so now it's holding together just fine. And the hardy clay is actually still soft in here, so it still remains pliable. Next, I also needed to do the interior of the mouth, and I ran out of supplies to make molds, so I just did a negative sculpture of the inner parts of the mouth. And I'm going to go ahead and pour some rubber latex over these and then glue them into the mask, and then I'll be ready for paint. Okay, as you can see here, I've made some teeth and spikes out of friendly plastic, and I just finished installing them along with the interior of the mouth. Here, I'm going to start painting the base coat. I've got some Krylon grease paint here. And then I started accentuating the details with a brown, and then I'm just going to be blending that. I didn't want to go with black, it would just be too stark of a contrast between the two colors. Although on camera you can barely see the blending. Camera seems to be taking it, just seeing mostly the red and the deeper tones. Need to work on the blending a bit more. Completed the putting on some of the shadowing or darker tones into the details. Again, it's hard to see the blending. For some reason this camera doesn't seem to be picking it up too much. Okay, I just completed putting highlights and powdering the mask, powdering the grease paint. Unfortunately, all I had was baby powder, so it kind of lightened everything and hid a lot of the blending I spent time doing. Anyway, let's get a little closer here. Yeah, it looks very cartoony. The outlines, the details are a little darker than I was aiming for. But like I said, the camera is picking up the lines as more of a black, and none of the blending. I finally got the mask secured to my face, but the edges are really rough around my eyes. There's a lot of gaps, so I'm going to use some mortician's wax to kind of hide those gaps. I just finished sculpting out with the mortician's wax to close the big gaps. Unfortunately, I only had spirit gum, so the mask doesn't want to stick to my face very well. But I just put the base coat of red. It looks pretty good. I haven't done the other side yet. Closed up some of the holes. Yeah, it's still pretty rough. It's hard for me to do much work around my bad eye. It's kind of bigger than my other eye. In a way it looks a little creepier almost than the other one, but still very rough looking though.